Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike, and today we're talking about the interior castle. I hope that you've seen the other two videos that we've done on this. That is Laura Hellsten and I. Hello, Laura. Say hello.
Hello.
Because today we are going to talk about Teresa's understanding of the human person, her understanding of what her anthropology academics say, just what a human being is, what you are. And if you have hopefully listened to some of her interior castle or you've read a little bit, you might be thinking, what? What? And some of what you're encountering there is Teresa's different understanding of what a human being is, which may be rather, common sense to you and may be rather unique and different. And today, Laura and I are going to try to eat a horse within a short video. We're going to try to tell you everything we know about what she thinks a human being is. So let's see here. Laura, which part of the horse would you like to start with?
Well, I'd actually like to start with the entry point of when one goes in close contact with medieval texts. Actually, the most baffling thing is not what they are saying, but the glasses that we are wearing.
Okay.
So that's how I normally start this also with my students in a university setting. We need to understand that what we pick up in the text might not actually be what she's saying, really. It's our lens that screws it up. And one of the ways that and why this is really interesting also is that scholars used to do this a lot too. We still do it. But there's been quite a progress in how we look at the medieval period in this time and age, like right now, like the past 20 years, the view has changed. Because there used to be a very strong view that the Middle Ages and that period is all about a dualism. It's all hell or God or body versus soul, or like all these kind of black and white things, and you have spirits and you have all these kind of weird demons and this and that, and it's just totally foreign. And it's totally like, that's not important to me because I don't think so. But actually that view is not the way that I would say that she experienced her life. And then that's why I think it's helpful to have this chat about, how is a human being or the world in her point of view, so that we get those juicy, deeper understandings of what she wants to tell us.
Yeah. Good. I think you are right in the sense of what we call dualism. Dualism is usually, with the idea as two different categories of things are sort of pitted against each other. So dualism for anthropology would mean that your sort of more invisible parts are sort of pitted against your visible, sort of physical, material parts. They're sort of in conflict and often sort of weighted differently. So you really, usually it's the idea is that the spiritual side, the invisible side, is way, way more important than the physical side, to the point that you mistreat your physicality, you mistreat your body. And actually we're not talking about Catherine of Siena, and so Teresa, so far as we know, wasn't whipping herself as Catherine thought would be helpful. So there is a bit of, yeah, difference in the way that they view their bodies. Actually, you know, looking at what people do to their bodies today, they're not whipping their bodies, but sometimes they are treating themselves pretty poorly. That is, in terms of the amount of physical discipline that they're investing. So that idea of mistreating the body isn't quite gone from us today, is it, Laura?
No, no, I definitely see it. I mean, I don't want to go into to naming practices, but there's a lot of things that might be hyped today, and that might be, you know, even suggested as a mindful practice or as a spiritual practice, but that really has a very rigorous pattern to it of how you should put your body and what you should do with it and what you should, you know, get to after a certain amount of time, and this is not, I mean, in Teresa's world, really the body is your friend. It's somebody to get to know, to become acquainted with. And yes, it will also have parts to it that will, you know, like the thing with sitting still that we spoke about last time. Well, that's actually a physical thing. And yes, if your body hasn't got an exercise and it has been sitting in front of your Zoom room, you know, the whole day anyway, it's not going to be wanting to sit for one more 20 minutes. It will actually be better in your relationship with your physical self to first go on a run or a walk or something, and then do the practice of you know, finding more of a presence in yourself and a possibility to listen to what's there. But when people portray it that that's because the body's sinful or bad or something, that's to misunderstand the whole practice. Actually, Teresa comes from a long tradition of women throughout the medieval period really having this much more sensual and you know, experimental experience, not just of their bodily, but with their union with God, or they are living with God, where you know, they explored that through all of what a human is. And that's also what she says, and she gives those different things.
Yeah. It's really interesting thinking then about using the body in positive ways, such as through dancing, that or the sort of the experience of celebration. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, about maybe the way that she would have put her body through very positive experiences, or let it be expressive of what she's maybe feeling on the inside or thinking on the inside?
Well, there is actually in her life, not in this interior castle that we spoke about now, but there is this little snippet where she's so filled with joy and that she actually starts dancing, that we have that little snippet of her life. So, but there's also other things, like you were already referring, some of the medieval mystics, and particularly the female such, had been caught into this pattern where, as we know, the history of the Western society has not always been very keen on promoting their female leaders, if we say it, you know, softly. So the way that they were kind of allowed to speak was because they tapped into that personal relationship with. And then sometimes, if we start with that longer period of history, the medieval, there's different aspects to that long period. So at some points, actually, female leaders like Hildegard of Bingen and Gertrud and they, like in the early medieval period, they did, instruct priests and kings, and they owned land and they're administered, and there was no problem with this. They even wrote encyclopedias that, every person who was educated read, and male and female. But at other periods, that freedom for the women to do and be anything in the society was restricted. And the closer we get to Teresa's time, and actually with the growth of universities, that makes the knowledge claims look specific for males that are allowed to go to universities, and then the females that are not, and that need to stick to a more religious path of education and so forth. So then what I'm saying here is that what happened there is that some then would go into these mystical experiences, like the flagellation, the whipping of yourself, or sitting for a very long period without eating, fasting, or these extreme methods to get to that state of elevation where you would sense that God was speaking, or even sometimes actually manipulating something to happen, so that you would have the authority from where to speak. So, but what Teresa is saying, like, no, this is not the way to go. This is not good. We should not push it in that way, because actually what comes from that kind of experiences isn't even a real religious experience. It might be a imaginary thing. It might be something that's something else, it's made up. It's not the real thing. So the way to go with these practices in your life is to really be soft and listen, and then explore the different rooms, like we were saying. And at some point, like I said last time too, you might be overwhelmed by all the creative ideas, all of the insights you get. You might be full of images and pictures, and she's not condemning that either. She's just saying that everything has its place and its spot, and we need to sort them out.
Yeah. Well, Teresa is certainly is a good guide if you are the sort of person that find yourself, whether in prayer or just in life, being deeply inspired or sort of enraptured by things. She has been there, and she knows she had nuns under her, other sisters with her who were there, and so she knows how to guide them. Now I don't actually know where it is in the book there, but you were saying too that she had a good recommendation for somebody or for people who were experiencing a lot of ecstasy in prayer or in life.
Yeah, and I think that actually needs a little bit of backing, going back to the whole structure of the person, like we were speaking about. So in the medieval period, a human being consisted of very different realms of experience. So you would have physical part, you would have the mental part, you would have like imagination. It was really important for you to really go into the stories with Jesus and live into them and be there with him. It was said, yes, do imagine yourself on the path to Emmaus or whatever, use that cognitive ability, and then through it also learn when it goes into your own view of things. So to find that, like the path, the differences. And one of the things that is interesting there is that, so for example, in the medieval period, there's no such thing as feelings and emotions. That's not a word that exists. There exists a word which is called passion. And passions, or if we go even further back, it's there's other words for it, but in the history, but that's actually a mental image that then draws you into a view of something, and then you get stuck with that view, and then you're driven towards it, you know.
Yeah.
and then she helps people, you know, when we get stuck with these mental images, how can we take them aside? What can we do with them? But all of that, as I see it, it needs to be, all of this that is happening here, and to sort that out, needs to be framed within the bigger Christian hope, which is that we have transformed bodies, that we will get this so-called resurrection body, which is a body where everything is working the way it is meant to work.
Yeah.
So what a prayer practice actually is, the way I always portray it and see it, and she uses those images too in the book, it's like this vessel, which is our body, needs to be more and more filled with the fuel of Holy Spirit. And so this progression through the stages of the castle are actually ways to learn for different part of us to work with the Holy Spirit. So in one practice, in one room, we practice the mental ability to have more Holy Spirit. In another, we practice the appetite of eating in relationship to Holy Spirit. In another practice, we practice the ability to live in poverty, for example, to not be attached to gains of a specific purposes or to material, gain of some kind. So anyway, so that is all part of this process of transformation that is, again, lifelong. And in the end of it, we're supposed to be all filled with the Holy Spirit. So that's, again, in the tradition that I've been researching, that is actually, even by Augustine himself, portrayed like we're these angelic spiritual entities dancing around God. So the dance image is really the best image used throughout the tradition of Christianity, in this case, for how that kind of body is supposed to look. But what she says is, in this path, there's going to happen the thing that you're going to get so much Holy Spirit into you that the system will kind of break because it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So that's the ecstasy, either that you get like stuck, like in the stiff position, they have a lot of experience, or you get this overflow of images, you might faint, they're happening lots of things. And that's because your system is not yet ready to contain so much holiness, so to speak. Yeah. And then she says exactly what you're saying here, which I think is really important to understand. She says, so if this happens, do not push it. Again, she says, do not try to get those experiences or go there or be with them too much. No, go back to the really important things, which is to prepare food for the poor, take care of the sick, clean your house, take care of your garden. She's really back into, this is where the transformation also happens. This is not less, this part. It's not unimportant. It's just as important. We need to just know where we are at in the whole progression of things.
It's just so profound how she describes things and where she wants to take us. Presumably, she's telling you about prayer. But really, in order to do that, she has to explain so much about who we are as human beings, bodily and unbodily, that she inevitably is going to tell you a whole lot about the soul. And I think we can get the idea that only modern psychologists know anything about the soul. And once you move, earlier than Freud, nobody really knew anything. And it's actually a bit the other way around. Now, I don't want to dismiss any sort of modern discoveries we've had about the soul, the psyche, all of that. But a lot of them were drawing from an earlier tradition, and Teresa is one of those people in that.
Also, what is really interesting in that is that it's also not just this interior psychology. It really is a human relationship book as well. I mean, she has these descriptions of, some people do this in real, of course, nobody amongst our sisters would ever do that. And you can hear like the irony or the humor being there.
Yeah.
And then she tells these stories where you will identify, oh, that's that person, And I know a person like that as well. And actually, her take is for you to see that and then, oh, wait a minute, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
This is me. I'm caught in these stories. I'm pursuing fame or happiness in these particular ways. I want to promote myself and think I'm so, good that I don't do anything wrong in that way, but then turn the angle a little bit and then you're going to see it from a new perspective. So she does it both in this our life together and in our internal. They're never divided from each other in that sense. So that's also a really beautiful part of the book. But we need to know that she's speaking with humor, that she's being ironic, that she's sometimes name-calling people, and if you don't know who it is, you might miss it, and things like that. And,
And even about herself, she calls herself a poor, uneducated soul. That really upset you the first time you read it, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was one of those... I can't take, because at that point I had just learned how not uneducated all the women were in the medieval period. That they all knew their Greek, sources and their Latin and their everything, and wrote the most fantastic poetry and drama. So I was a little bit upset that now they are speaking about themselves in this way, which has then made later research able to stick with there were no female scientists or whatever, the stories. So, but once you understand that, no, it's a way of both rhetoric in order to be heard in a very tricky political situation, but then also a way of just reminding herself that she might get caught in all of these stories where we kind of make things up in order to not look at ourselves and where we are at. So there's that to it too.
Yeah. Well, Laura, I think we have not gotten very far on our horse eating, but hopefully we have given you all a start of where you might, how you might understand this book and what she's trying to tell us about us. And I do hope that you read the book. And if you get started, please share that with us, with Laura, whether it's in the comments here for the video or on Instagram. Laura, do you have a social media?
Yes, I'm on Instagram normally, so that's a good place.
Instagram, there you go. Yeah, so let us know how you've gotten on, and even if you have any questions, Laura will answer them all. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for watching this. Thanks for joining us, getting all the way to the end of this. If you've enjoyed this, please think of other people that might appreciate hearing about books like this and getting into this kind of literature. And let us know if there's other things that you think we should do, sort of major books, and we'll see what we can come up with. But thanks, Laura. And we'll just say goodbye for now, and until next time.
Yay!